Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, just a friendly PSA that April 1st is upon us, which means we may see some confusing and random news. The first bit of random news I've spotted is about Batocera Linux, which is a free and open source Linux retro gaming distribution. Now, for the record, I'm assuming that this is an April Fool's thing, but if we take a look at Batocera's GitHub, there's a commit here to remove every single Nintendo system from their platform. I don't necessarily think this one is real. It's listed as open as opposed to merged. Now, one of the moderators on Batocera's Discord says a cease and desist letter was sent 2 weeks ago. This is not something suddenly new. Thought it was just Citra, but it's much worse, I suppose. I'll still wait for the full story. To be honest with you, this absolutely reeks of April Fools, but at the same time there, I guess, is a small chance it's not. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. If it is an April Fool's, do you think it's done in poor taste, or do you think it's a good one? Next up, we're talking about the second April Fool's thing I've seen, and this one is from JSAUX, or JSAUX, I'm not quite sure on how to say their name. This company is well known for creating things like docks for the Steam Deck. And they say, behold gamers, after working on creating accessories for products like the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally, we've achieved a full comprehension of how a handheld console works. Therefore, we'll launch a Kickstarter campaign for our own gaming handheld device. And again, I could be wrong about this, but I mean, if we take a look at this image, it doesn't look real. It looks AI generated. I mean, the ports at the bottom of this device don't make sense. The labeling on the buttons don't make any sense. The D-pad doesn't make any sense, neither do the buttons underneath it. And if we take a look at the right-hand side, we've got 4 buttons on the top, 4 buttons in the middle, and a weird circle pad thing underneath. So realistically here, I'm assuming this is AI generated and another April Fool's thing. But moving on from the April Fool's stuff, and next up we're talking about multi-system emulator ARES, and I can assure you this update is real. They just released version 1.37. So they say here this is a relatively small update in terms of number of features and changes. However, the primary change is a big one I'm sure you all will love. So we've got a whole bunch of bug fixes and also some emulation improvements. For example, improvements to the 32X and Sega CD, improvements to the Game Boy Advance, Super Famicom, PC Engine, and WonderSwan. And here is the big change, which is amazing if you like shaders. They say ARES shader pipeline has been recreated to support shaders written for the same slang shader pipeline as RetroArch. All shaders from LibRetro slang shaders are included. They say please be mindful that LibreShader itself and ARES implementation of it are both rather new, and some shaders may have compatibility issues. Moving on, and we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Citra Fork Lemonade, and Lemonade just released Alpha 2. So in this update, we've got some fixes and improvements. For example, on Android, they've got some performance improvements and fixes for Mali GPUs and OpenGL. They have fixed most of Luigi's Mansion 2 performance issues, and this may be huge if you like 3DS emulation on PC. They have implemented initial support for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. On a side note, I don't think I need to say this, but this update is not an April Fool's one. I'll drop a link to Lemonade's GitHub in the description below, and feel free to check it out. It's free and open source. Moving on, and we're talking about ScummVM, which stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or a script creation utility from Maniac Mansion Virtual Machine, depending on how you want to interpret that. And ScummVM just got a brand new update. At the time of filming, ScummVM version 2.8.1 is the latest update. It's their first release of 2024, and they say it's mainly a bug fix and maintenance release. For example, on Android, Atari, and Mac OS, these ports have received multiple bug fixes, mostly for improving overall stability and preventing some crashes. Their overall fixes for this release are quite extensive, so if you do have a specific issue, I do recommend checking out this bug fix report, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Maybe it's been resolved for you. Next up, we're talking about emulicious, which is a multi-system emulator for the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Game Gear, MSX, and MSX2. So emulicious has just released a brand new Easter update. They've got a whole bunch of bug fixes and a brand new feature here. They've added in video recording. For those who may be unaware, emulicious is, I'd argue, ultra compatible. It's compatible with pretty much any system that runs Java. Next up, we're talking about a couple of indie games. The first one here is called Felvidek, and this is a JRPG where you take control of a 15th century alcoholic. The graphics for this game are pretty neat. The system specs required to run it are pretty low. It only requires 512 megs of RAM. The price of this one is under $20, and the reviews of it have been pretty positive. I mean, one of the top reviews says, "My wife left me as well. Good game." And the second game here we've talked about before, it's Unlinked Mask. And Unlinked Mask has officially launched on Steam and also itch.io. Unlinked Mask appears to be a difficult platformer. It's currently on sale for less than $5 on Steam and $3.99 on itch.io. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and if you've played this one, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Next up, this is a quick one and just a friendly heads up if you've got a gaming handheld. If you've got JELOS on it, it turns out that JELOS may be end of life. ROCKNIX is a fork of JELOS being worked on by some of the former JELOS team members. And ROCKNIX just got a brand new update. This is free, it's open source, and 2024-03-29 is the latest update. It's technically their first update. I'll drop a link to the GitHub in the description below. And at this point in time, ROCKNIX is currently compatible with certain ROCK chips, for example, the RK3588, the 3326, the 3399, and the 3566. Next up, this is a quick one. Silent Hill 2 Remake just got a rating on ESRB. A lot of people are assuming that the release date of this one is going to be announced soon. Next up, I've got another quick one for you, and I've got some arguably good and also bad news, and this is about CD Projekt Red, the studio behind Cyberpunk 2077 and also The Witcher. And when asked about microtransactions in their future games, here is their response. We do not see a place for microtransactions in the case of single-player games. Good news. But we do not rule out that we will use this solution in the future in the case of multiplayer projects. Arguably bad news. Next up, we're talking about an arguably big win for game preservation. Metal Network Rockman EXE has been dumped and preserved. This is a rare arcade game. If you want to see the game kind of working, I'll drop a link to a YouTube video in the description below and feel free to check it out. The game has been dumped and preserved, but is currently not fully working with emulators. I'm assuming that one of MAME's future updates in the next few months may cover this game, and if you wanted to learn more about the backstory, I'll drop a link to a very interesting article in the description below. And last up here, this is a quick and arguably fun one, depending on your version of fun. I don't know why this exists, but someone got Apple CarPlay up and running on their Nintendo Switch. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point. All stuff and one fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.